Her dedication Her dedication to research is evident with 15 publications in national and international journals. Notably, she has collaborated with ICMR for a multicentric study on COVID determinants, which got published in PLOS One. Dr. Parameshwari has showcased her expertise on various platforms, presenting papers at national and international conferences, including the European Congress of Tropical Medicine and International Health in Bergen, Norway, in virtual mode. She has been a resource person for more than 15 academic events. Her contributions extend beyond academia. She has served as a COVID vaccination nodal officer of Chengalpat Medical College since 2021, and she has organized health awareness programs and screening camps in rural areas, focusing on communities like Narikuravers and migrants. Currently, she holds the position of the Nodal Officer of Multidisciplinary Research Unit under DHR in Chengalpat Medical College and serves on the board of members for second year MBBS in Tamil Nadu Medical MJAD University, as well as an ethical committee member of CLTRI. Dr. Parameshwari's diverse experience includes role as NABH Nodal Officer and NSS Program Officer conducting Swachh Bharat mission for NSS volunteers in adopted villages twice. Her primary interests lie in epidemiology, tribal health, and migrant populations. With all this, it's a great honor to have you here to share your insights on today's topic, Undertaking Pedagogy. On behalf of Digital Wing TADCOM, we extend a warm welcome to Dr. Parameshwari ma'am for our webinar. I also extend my welcome to our President, Dr. Arun Murugan sir, Vice President, Dr. Tirunavakarasu sir, Secretary, Dr. Sudarshini ma'am, Joint Secretary, Dr. Kribaharan sir, Treasurer, Dr. Rajesh sir, and Coordinator of Digital Wing, Dr. Anantishwar sir, along with all TADCOM members and participants. We are delighted to have you all here today. Without any further delay, I now invite Dr. Parameshwari ma'am to begin the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for the pleasant start, Doctor.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Happy evening, everyone. Hope most of the participants have joined online.
Ma'am, shall I share the PPT, ma'am?
Yes, there is. Please.
Oh, okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Parameshwari, currently working as Associate Professor in Chengalpat Medical College in Department of Community Medicine. I'm here to present this webinar on Principle of Pedagogy. I thank TADCOM for giving me this opportunity to meet all you virtually for this important topic, which is right now for the PG exam students. It is very important right now since you are going to face your practicals in 2 or 3 days. Next slide. So this is my lesson plan. Because since I'm going to take a pedagogy, I thought I should distribute the lesson plan to all the learners or who are the participants here. I gave the audience as 150, expecting 150 postgraduates to attend this. My general objective of this session is, at the end of the session, you should be able to describe the principles of pedagogy in medical education. And my specific learning objective at this session is to enlist the 3 domains, distinguish between pedagogy, andragogy, and pedagogy, describe the components of SLO, and to prepare a lesson plan with the SLO and the steps in micro teaching. So though we'll be entering into these topics as we enter the session, still just have a look at this lesson plan. So next slide, please. Okay, can anyone put in the chat box, what is this? Everybody, my question is not who is this? What is this? What is the character name? Chitty, yes, okay. Robo, okay. Then Chitty the robo, okay. AI, okay, good, great. A diverse response from Hero, okay. programmed device, Chitti. Why? First of all, I want to start the topic with Talaivar because he's an universal star. Everybody knows about Rajni. Is there anyone who doesn't know about Rajni? Even the small child knows about it. But how it is related to our topic? When you see the first one, it is the Chitti. That is the first Endran. When you see the second one, it is the Endran 2.0. That is Chitti with who was there, and that along with that Kuti. I think the Kuti Chitti was Kuti. And now we are expecting the third version of Indran, it is 3.0. We don't know what is going to come, whether it is Shetty, whatever it is. So we are going to have a Indran 3.0 shortly. So how it is relevant to our topic now? When you see this movie, you can see a transition as the technology increases. In the first Indran movie compared to the second, there was only one robo or one few technologies used. When it was in the second version, you can see there was another lady robo was also accompanying him, and we had a lot of other technologies introduced in the second one. And now we can expect in the third robo, there will be an advanced and recent technologies they may be using in that. So there is a paradigm shift even in the technology in all the field. It is not restricted only to movies or any other science. It is even in the education process. Next. Do you know what version we are in our education now? So education has crossed 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. So gone are the days where teachers are considered as gurus. Whenever we see our teacher, even maybe it may be a decade, 2 or 3 decades ago, where the teachers are the only resources where we can learn whatever is new. It was in the education 1.0 where the information is by the instructivism. That is, only the teacher will instruct the students what is to be learned. The students get the knowledge only from the teachers. They get, the teachers will be the guide, or the teachers will be the instructor or teacher. The class will be led only by the teacher. The teacher will decide what is to be taught, what is to be learned in education 1.0. In the version 2.0, what happened? It became a constructivism where the learner he used to construct the knowledge from the social interaction, from the various blog. It was started by Siemens in 2005, where there was introduction of social networking, where it started, where we got many internet facilities. Where in this 2.0, teachers became facilitator. So the role of teachers has come down in education 2.0 compared to 1.0, where the learners learn by communicating, connecting, and collaborating, and they have a constructive learning. That is the andragogy type of learning. And in 3.0, it is still more advanced, where they have a connectivism, where we have different connectivity between the social networks, between people. We have a lot of tools to engage ourselves in the education, for the education, where the role of teacher is still more reduced. Here, they are only the suggester. There is no more the role of teacher nowadays. They can only suggest or guide. The learners learn by themselves. So it is a self-determined education. So this is 3.0. It is a connectivism type of learning in 3.0. So to summarize about this education paradigm, next. 1.0, next slide, please. 1.0 is an authoritarian approach, which is teacher-centered system. 2.0 is exam-based approach, where you have a technology, but it is not coordinated to that extent. It is still, there was a chance of collaboration in 2.0, where you can see the teacher has an orchestrator. That is, he has a role, but not as in the first education 1.0. In education 3.0, the approach has changed to student-centered approach. Here we have the invasion of flipped classroom. So what is this flipped classroom? See, whenever we want a topic. So now, just for example, you are listening to pedagogy topic. So you, before attending this webinar, you go and learn, just browse the net and see, okay, what is this pedagogy? What are the principles? The first, either to learn more in the webinar, or either to see whether we are covering whatever is given in the net or whatever given in the source. First, you learn and you understand what is that. Then you attend the class. At the class, you understand, you attend and you integrate and you collaborate with your peer group. And then again, you go and extend your knowledge. So this is the flipped classroom technique, which is applied in education 3.0. And again, at least Indian has stopped with 3.0. Our education system has not stopped. Now it is 4.0, where it is innovation and intensive approach, where we have a blended learning. So now you can see there are a lot of online courses blooming up. You can see there they give modules, they supply modules online where you have to complete the modules. And other than that, along with that, you have to attend their contact classes, where you have to go and attend contact classes for a few weeks, a few months. And again, you'll be having online classes. So this is the blended learning, where you have classroom learning and also online learning together, where you can extend the knowledge. So this is blended learning, which is more common in education 4.0. Along with that, we have this MOOC. I think everybody are familiar with this term. Massive online, open online courses, which is available everywhere. We have many courses given by WHO and many organizations, where you can easily complete the courses and get certified. And again, we have the collaboration, as somebody suggested in the beginning, artificial intelligence. Now it is an era of artificial intelligence, where even education is going to be collaborated with artificial intelligence. And ultimately, so the entire essence is the teacher's role is becoming minimal. The learner's autonomy is becoming more as the education process is having a transformation. So as a teacher, even now, I'm just going to facilitate or just going to guide you about this pedagogy. I'm not going to teach you. I just stated in the beginning itself, it's just an add-on point for whatever you know. You may be knowing more than whatever I'm going to say, but still definitely this will be an add-on for your knowledge. Next. So to start with, next. So education, I have told everything about the paradigm. So what is this education? Education is actually a system. See, whenever we buy a car. So what was a car before? Before we get a car, before we get it in a hand or before we drive it, it was a parts, where the part has been assembled and it will be put in place where it should be supposed to be, and we get a car according to our choice. It may be Kia, or it may be BMW, or it may be Benz. The input, the process, and the output is different for different system. Depending upon the input, that is the resources, the money, the cost, the efficiency, that is the cost, the money, how much they spend, the materials, whatever they use, the input, and the technology, whatever they use. Depending upon it, the output, the effectiveness, that is the effectiveness, the quality comes out according to that. Sir, can you see the administrator, please see the slide is being scribbled. Please take care. So education is basically a system which is interrelated and interdependent with many components to achieve the desirable goal. So what is the goal in education? You have to have a desirable change in the behavior in terms of attitude, skill, and knowledge. It is a spiral or the cyclical process where we formulate our plan or objective. We have an objective. For that, we plan and implement our curriculum or the teaching learning methods. Based on that, we evaluate, and finally we get a competent Indian medical graduate. So now tell me, in this system of education, what are the inputs? I said for a car, we need all these inputs. So in our system of education, what are the inputs we have? A system is basically an input, process, and output. In system, in our medical education, I want answer from the participant. Please put in the chat box. What are the input we have in our medical education? What are the different levels of input? Objectives. Okay. Anybody else? Syllabus. Good. Very good. Then. So now imagine, tell me, when you entered your college in your first year, what were the resources available there? Was it only the syllabus? Was it only the competencies or the objectives? Students, you're the input. Student is the input who comes inside as a new entry. We have teachers. Nobody is mentioning about the teachers as the input. See, that's what I just told. Teacher's role has been come down. So main method is the teacher, the teaching learning method, college infrastructure, the money, how much the college spends, the effectiveness of the college or whatever, is different for the college which spends more money or more in the infrastructure compared to the college which has less infrastructure. I think everybody do agree with this. So these are the inputs. You have a teacher, you have a college, you have money, you have the objectives, as you said, you have the curriculum. All these things are put together as input. He undergoes a process of medical education, graduate medical education. And once he has completed this process, he goes and the output is given as a competent Indian medical graduate. So now we are in the era of competency-based education rather than the traditional method, where in the traditional method, we have a curriculum, we teach it, we evaluate it, and then we give mark. But now it is not like that. So what is the difference in the competent? So competence is something where you are expected, first of all, the curriculum is based on the health needs. Whatever is the need is in the curriculum, and you give the teaching learning method based on that curriculum, and you see whether the student has attained a desirable level of ability in terms of knowledge, skills, and attitude towards the end of the process. Only then he is considered as a competent Indian medical graduate. So this is the essence of Indian medical, that is our graduate medical education as a system process. It is a spiral process where everything happens in a circle again and again. Even now, the teaching or the learning for the medical education is not having an end. Still, we attend the continuous medical education program where we are in the learning process throughout our life. Next slide, please. So this education process has three main components. First is the objectives. As one doctor mentioned in the beginning, we have the educational objective, we have the teaching learning activities, and finally we evaluate. So these are the components of the education process. So these objectives broadly comes under institutional objective, departmental objective, and specific learning objective. Whatever it may be, every institution, all of your institution have a objective or a goal to give so many goals they will be having. So they will have an objective. So at the end of this, the medical graduate should go. The institutional objective is different for different institution, and the departmental objective is basically derived from this institutional objective, because as such the institution gives an objective. Now, it cannot give for each department, but the department derives it from the institution objective based on what it has given. It frames according to that. Most of the time, the departmental objective will be overlapping for different departments. I'll say with an example. And from the departmental objective, we derive the specific learning objective. So these are the three broad objectives which you have to remember when it comes to education. Then you have the learning and teaching objectives, and we have different teaching learning methods. And finally, you evaluate the student based on formative and summative evaluation. Next. So as I said, institutional objective. So at the end of the MBBS course, the students will be able to provide preventive and curative care of individuals in the community in health and disease. So this is the institutional objective. So when it comes to departmental objective, so at the end of the final year MBBS student, the student will be able to apply the knowledge of general medicine towards managing common health problems. So this will be the departmental objective, which is derived from the institutional objective. So if you see the departmental objective, the same objective can apply even for a chest medicine department, or it can be for a community medicine department. In any department can have this type of objective. So as I said, the departmental objective overlaps for different departments. Next comes the specific learning objective, which is derived from the departmental objective. So at the end of this demonstration, if you have some skill or some task, you expect the student to able to perform the task to the desirable level, or to the particular criteria. That is, demonstration, the final year MBBS will able to record the blood pressure of a hypertensive patient using a sphygmomanometer with a difference of 5 to 10 millimeters. So I will explain you about the SLO in the coming slides. But I just want to say these are the three objectives you have to remember when you talk about education objective: institution, departmental, and specific learning objective. Next. Next slide, please. So the next thing, which is universally asked in most of the pedagogy sessions, or which you have to learn as a doctor or as a teacher, is about the taxonomy of the education objective. So it was given and framed by Dr. Benjamin Bloom. He is basically a psychologist in 1956, in order to promote the forms of thinking in education. So just like that, thinking of when we teach or when we learn something, as I said, we should attain knowledge only. It's not like only one part of the knowledge should be attained. We should have a desirable criteria or attainment of ability in all the three domains. So what are the three domains? And each domains have different levels which the learner can be achieved. So we broadly classify the domains of education objective into cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So remember, as CAP. So ultimately, a graduate wants a CAP at the end. We are going to have a CAP in the graduation day. So that CAP is basically this cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So cognitive is something related to your head, that is your brain. And affective is something related to your heart. And psychomotor is related to your hands. So head is about cognition, your heart, your emotion is about affective, and skills, when you use your hands, is the psychomotor. So remember these three cognitive domains in mind thoroughly. Next. So each domain, as I said, each domain has different levels. So what are the different levels? So when it comes to cognitive, it has 6 levels of learning. That is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So now just you remember some fact or something which you want to learn. Just remember, first of all, when you learn about that thing, first you have to recall the fact, whatever you know, the basic concept or something. First, you have to remember whenever you learn something. Once you remember, you will understand. So understand, you have to explain the ideas and the concept, you have to understand it. Once you understand, you start applying this in the new situation. Once you apply this in the new situation, you will analyze. So when to use, where to use, how to use, why to use, why not to use. So you will draw connection among the ideas, you will analyze based on that. Once you analyze, you will evaluate. Okay, now I'm going to apply this, whether this will come out successfully, whether I can use this, whether this will have a good result. So just stand, you will have a decision. You will decide whether to whether to follow it or not. And finally, you produce a new or original. Based on that, you produce a new or original work. Just with this, I can tell you an example which can be easily understandable by everyone. First of all, if you want to know about hypertension, first you should know what is hypertension. Okay, hypertension. Okay, increase in BP, right? Okay, then just increase in BP said hypertension. Now I have to understand. No, there are classification. Then we have based on JNC7, we have different classification like stage 1, stage 2. There are different levels of classification. You understand it. Then you use this information in the new situation. Okay, now I have a patient. Whether I have to use this patient in the patient with angina, whether we can, what is the BP should be there for a patient with stroke. So you use this information in the new situation. If at all, if it is high, how you are going to use this idea, how to going to draw this connection. Okay, this is high. Okay, this is not normal. So I have to analyze. And now I have to write the treatment based on that. Okay, I have decided this is high. I'm going to write. I'm going to evaluate. Okay, if I write this treatment, this patient will have a reduction in BP. I evaluate and apply whatever I have learned based on my analysis. Now I have to write a prescription on my own. That is, you produce new or original work. So just whatever you do now as a doctor or anything that has crossed all the stages of learning. Before, it was a new concept. When you were a college student or when you entered a college, there are few things which is new as a medical graduate. Only after learning, it becomes familiar to us, so that we apply it just like that. So these are the levels before understanding anything. So again, I'm saying remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Okay, so this was designed by actually Bloom, and it was later modified by his students, David, in 2000. Previously, the fifth and sixth levels were different. Now they have changed it into evaluating and creating, and they have added these verbs. Instead of nouns, they have added these action verbs along with it. If at all, if you want to say a fact about recall, you can use for the specific learning objective, you can use the word define. You can memorize, you can duplicate. If you want to explain, if you are teaching somebody about the classification of hypertension or classification of BMI, so what words you can use in SLO? You can use classify, discuss, explain, identify, locate. So these are the action verbs which you have to use when you are framing an SLO. If you're going to teach or teach the students about something which they have to apply or demonstrate, so you have to use the word use, demonstrate, interpret. If you want to organize, compare, contrast, or differentiate, so if at all, if you have a BMI or something, you want to compare or contrast between the normal, obese, overweight, so that is the analyzing part. You have to analyze whether they are obese or whether they are normal weight, and then you apprise or critically analyze, and then finally you give or design a new work. So this is the levels of cognitive domain, which is basically a domain of intellectual skill. It is basically the skill of knowledge, understanding, and applying things where you attain knowledge. Next slide. So the second domain is the affective domain in the CAP. It is A, affective domain. So previous slide. Okay, so the next is the affective domain. Again, it has 5 levels of the next. Please change the slide for affective domain, please. Okay, please stay in this. Affective domain is the domain of communication skill. So I don't know what's the confusion over there. Please hang on to affective domain slide, please. Or do you want me to share? Please hold on to this. Please don't change. So when you have, when we're talking about affective domain, it is a domain of communication skill, how we communicate, how we communicate as a doctor to a patient or to your colleagues or to anybody. Because as a doctor, it is not only the knowledge that matters, it's also the attitude, your behavior, everything matters. So this has different levels like receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and characterizing. So here we have the action verbs of behavior, where when you receive, you open to experience an idea. First of all, you have to be, you should accept, or you should be willing to hear anything. So today you have come here to understand the pedagogy. First of all, you should have the will to hear this topic. So that first receiving, then you respond, you get involved here, you participate very actively in whatever you're going to learn. Then you attach the values and express your personal opinions. Okay, so this is like this. Okay, I have to apply my, I have to modify my teaching behavior with this techniques. Okay, these are the techniques. So I'm making such mistake. So you have to attach your values and you have to attach your personal opinions. Behavior. So reconcile disparate elements or conflicts and develop your value system. You have to, then you have to think, okay, this is like this. What if I don't use this? So there will be a lot of conflict before understanding it. Once you understand, this is what I have to, this is an acceptable fashion, I have to use this. Okay, this will suit my behavior. Then you adopt it and use it continuously. That became your character. I don't know whether we can use this example for using mask, because when we were asked to wear a mask during the COVID pandemic, many of them had a difficulty, like they don't want to use it because I don't get COVID. That is not, I'm very immune for it. But in order to develop that behavioral change, so what we have to first, they have to first hear, this is important, this mask is important. See, you have to wear it. So once they hear it, okay, then they'll think, okay, let me use it or not. They get involved in it. Then they will participate, okay, let me use this. And they will think, okay, if I use this, whether I'll get COVID, whether I'll prevent COVID. So they will have their conflict. They'll attach their values. Okay, if I use this, whether I can breathe, okay, whether this will give me a protection. So they have their values and express their personal opinion. Then they decide, okay, then this will give me a positive point. They reconcile the elements. They have a lot of conflicts and finally accept it. Once they accept it, that will become your character. So all the behavior, whatever we do, see, if you see a patient, if you have to console a patient, who is going to undergo an invasive procedure, first you should know that patient will have pain during the invasive procedure. Then you have to tell them, Ma, this is not a big procedure. You will become okay. The first you will say. Then you have to accept, oh, this should be done for all the patients. After that, you never even going to think, whenever you're going to do any invasive procedure to the patient, you will tell them, this is what going to be the procedure. There will be pain. Please accept it. Nothing will be a problem. You will start consoling the patients. That communication skill develops only after these types of levels like receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and characterizing. So these are the domains of communication skill. Next. Next is your psychomotor domain, where you demonstrate. So for example, if a surgeon, if you expect a surgeon to excel only in a cognitive and affective domain, his competencies are not achieved. He should have a practical skill far excellent from the other domains, because this domain is specific. Actually, everybody should have excellence in all the domains, but depending upon the profession or depending upon the specialty, whatever you're taking, each domain dominates. Here, when you do some skill, first of all, what you do? First, you imitate. First, you learn. You see somebody doing that. You copy the actions. First, you imitate them. Then you manipulate. You reproduce the activity from the instruction. So first you have understood, you've seen them, then you see, okay, this is what to be done. Okay, let me try it. You reproduce just whatever you have seen. You manipulate it. Then you precise it to the high quality. Then you demonstrate, you learn it and you do it according to the high quality. You do it correctly. And then once you are confident with it, you expertise to the non-standard. That is, you become, you integrate all the methods and you do it independently without anybody's. Once you have achieved that level, you become master in that activity. You learn, you become a TOT, or you will design your own module, or that level of naturalizing comes when you achieve all these four. At least we have to reach at least this 3 or up to the 4 is a very high level for anybody. So naturalizing is somebody who are masters in any of the skills where they teach others in that skills. So for example, if somebody is doing a CPR or somebody is doing an ICT, first they will see how it is being done. First they will see somebody doing the CPR and they will do whatever they have seen from that person. Once they do, they will learn, okay, so this should not be done like this. This has some procedure. Let me know the steps. Then they precise that learning. Then they articulate it. Once they precise, okay, this is how it has to be applied. Let me do it with steps, and they'll articulate. Once they have articulated and done it many times, they will become masters. They'll naturalize in that skills. All these skills, whatever we do, a surgeon who is excellent in doing surgeries should have undergone all these levels before becoming a master in that particular skill. That is imitating, manipulating, precising, articulating, and naturalizing. This is the psychomotor domains of the levels of learning. So the verbs what we use here: imitate, copy, replicate. So the student should be able to repeat the CPR which is being taught. They have to carry out the CPR in a person, in a ward. So they have to apply this CPR in a accident, in a trauma patient. Then they will do it in any kind of situation. Then they develop a module or they design a module of their own to conduct a CPR. So these are the different steps in psychomotor domain. So these are the 3 domains. Next slide. So just to summarize, because this is very important part in the slide, because when you are asked for the domains, this is the essence of any of our learning in our curriculum or in our day-to-day learning. So please remember all this. So these are the different levels of cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor domain. Next. So I think we have completed the first process, education process. That's the education objective. We have taught about institutional, departmental and SLO, and we have taught about the education objective, different domains. Now we are going to the next component of our education process. It is teaching learning process. So teaching is a process intended for learning. It is actually an art of communication. So how this induce a behavioral change among the learners is the process of teaching. But learning is actually an act how one modify his behavior based on what is being taught. So teaching is an art of communicating. Learning is an art of behavioral change or modification the experience based on what is taught. Next slide. So this teaching learning approach, as I said before, there is a paradigm shift from pedagogy to andragogy to hedogogy. So pedagogy is basically the teacher and learning, which is in education 1.0, where the teacher is the instructor, and andragogy is self-directed learning, where the teacher will be the facilitator, and hedogogy is the self-determined learning, where the teacher will be only the guide. So these are the three teaching learning approach which you have to know. Next. So let me teach one by one. So pedagogy. So this is what is the intended topic today. Pedagogy, the terms come from Pedagogus. It is the leader of child, or the art, science, or profession of teaching for child, basically. It is a pediatrics. It's a pediatrics. So it's for children, basically. So children, what they do, they will follow whatever the teacher says. They will learn from whatever the teacher says. So you will evaluate from whatever is taught, and ultimately they will be given the evaluation based on whatever is being completed. So this is what was pedagogy. This is what the method we have been followed for many years. And this was the art which has been successful for classroom teaching for so many years, for so many decades. Here, the basics of pedagogy, or there are different levels like cognitivism, constructionism, and behaviorism. So these are the different levels of pedagogy. Again, pedagogy has also having paradigm shift as pedagogy 2.0 and 3.0 there, where the teaching learning methods are different. Next. So these are the strategies, pedagogical strategies, which we use in our clinical or in a clinical supervision, where we intervene, where we demonstrate, where we lecture, where we supplement, pilot, prompt. That is, prompting is like students where the teacher will be sitting along with them, and she will be teaching. If at all, if he's doing something, if he's in the clinical bedside teaching, he will, if at all, if he does something to the patient, she'll be prompting, okay, this is right. The teacher will be always there with them to guide. Whenever in our second clinical, or when you're going for the clinical posting for the first time, you will have this pedagogical type of teaching where the teachers will be always guiding us. And in the classes, we have the lecture method where we'll be taught with most of our topics. And we have questions and replies. So this is how the pedagogical strategy is used in our clinical perspective, where the teachers as telling, teachers as organizing, and teachers as making the understanding possible. There is a role of teacher in pedagogy, where the teacher's focus is mainly to make the students understand and organize the activity in a successful way. Next. Andragogy is the art and science of teaching adults. So as a medical graduate, so whenever the student comes, even this andragogy is not only restricted only for college learning, it also actually comes for even school learning. Nowadays, previously pedagogy was restricted till 12th standard. Now they have been extended the term even to the school education. The school educations has a lot of innovations in the teaching learning methods. You would have heard of smart classrooms, flipped classrooms. They are being used in most of the schools nowadays. So this art and science of teaching adults was given by Knowles, who in 1970, based on 5 assumptions. According to his assumption, why adults teaching is different compared to pedagogy? Because adults are self-directed learners. They know what to learn. They have a great deal of experience. So if I say something about for example, if I say something about artery, if I say something about heart or anything, they have some knowledge or they have some experience. They would have learned about this in their school life. They have a bit of experience in whatever they learn, and they seek education as ready to learn. Once they learn, they are ready to apply it. They can go and apply it. They need to apply it. So as a doctors, whatever you learn, you are going to apply it. You are going to use it. It is not only for theory purpose, only for exam purpose. This is for our application. and you should be internally motivated to learn. An adult learner, he should have an intrinsically he should be motivated to learn whatever is being taught, and he learns based on the problem. So it's basically a problem based learning rather than a teacher led learning. So he has a problem. So now the problem based learning is, now the PG postgraduate should have to attend the pedagogy session at the end of his final year examination. So this is it. So for that you are going to learn now. So based on different problems, like for a patient, they will give a problem. So they'll have a simulation, they'll have a hypothetical question, or you will have given a case scenario. So based on that, you have to apply your knowledge. So these are the problem based learning. So next. I think this question came in yesterday's theory examination for PGs. So self-directed learning is a process in which individuals take the initiative with or without the help of others in diagnosing their learning needs, formulating their learning needs, and identifying the material resources for learning, choosing and implementing the learning strategies, and evaluating the learning outcomes. So it is basically the adults who take or who initiate the learning. So they know, they come forward and learn what is required for them. Next. So this is the component of self-directed learning. First, you have to assess the readiness to learn. So what is am I organized, self-disciplined? Am I able to communicate effectively? Am I able to accept and use the feedback? So if somebody gives me feedback, am I ready to accept it? Am I ready to able to engage in the self-evaluation? Am I willing and able to self-reflect? So these are the component. So they have the, first of all, they have to be ready to learn. It has to come from their intrinsic motivation. They should have their goals set by themselves. So what I want to know actually, what I want to get from this learning. So where I have already, how to share my goals, how can I apply this, whether this will be useful. So there is no point if somebody goes and learns which is not where he's not going to apply it anywhere. So you have to have a goal before learning. And you have to understand, engage in the learning process, my needs, my instructional methods, what good teachers do. So they have the analysis. So now I'm taking, you have an idea. So whether this topic is good, whether this is useful, whatever you can, you have a feedback, because we are all adult learners. So it's not like I'm going to teach you or preach you and you're going to learn. So this is like you add on to whatever points you have already an experience. You just, it is a process of learning, or you just an extra addition for whatever you know. So we get a support. I give a support to your learning. So this is what is basically about the self-directed learning. Ultimately, you evaluate it, you communicate to the instructor, you seek the feedback, you set a criteria for whatever you learn and reflect. So how will you reflect on the performance? So if you learn, if you learn a proper pedagogy, if you learn frame a proper SLO, if you frame a proper lesson plan, if you evaluate and this has come out correctly, then your learning has done correctly. So you have you have done the learning process properly. So these are the 4 main components. You have to assess readiness to learn. You have to have a learning goal which is set by yourself, which has come from intrinsic motivation. You should engage yourself actively in the learning process. And finally, you have to evaluate your learning. So these are the 4 main components of adult learning. Next. Self-directed learning can be 2 types, like facilitated learning or self-paced learning. So facilitated learning here, the content need to be delivered through the teacher or a facilitator. So like what we are doing it now. So it may be communication between the teacher and learner through audio video lectures, by flipped classroom, small group discussion, donut rounds, where they will be sit in a circle where they will be moving in the circle around and around. They will have a different interaction group. First two people will talk, and again they will move. They will have another set to discuss. So they will have a facilitated learning by the different partners. So one type of self-directed learning is facilitated learning. Fishbowl technique is self-paced learning is how the need is a learner has to have the motivation, orientation, learning is required, know the available content, and is competent to choose a suitable course. So as I said, we have so many online courses and digital books available. Whatever we have, if at all we have some course, it is given in self-paced. You can learn at whatever time available for you. You can use your own time, your own knowledge, or whenever you're free, you can read that and you can complete that courses. For example, our BCBR. You have you are given with different assignment where whenever you got time, you have finished that. And once you have completed, once you have reached that level of assignment 50%, you have to attend the exams, go and do it straightly. So this BCBR is one of the example for self-paced learning, online courses. And there are other many courses which are available nowadays with the self-paced learning, where the adults can learn based on their motivation, based on their learning goals, whether to learn. See, there are so many courses for diabetes, there are so many courses for hypertension, thyroid. There are a lot of courses available where, depending upon your motivation, you can learn them based on online. So this is self-paced learning. Next. So we have completed andragogy and pedagogy. Now it is heutagogy. So there it's not too far. Now we are moving towards this heutagogy method of teaching learning. That is, it is a form of self-determined learning, where the capability action learning process basically on the reflection and the environment and the valuing experience in interaction with others. As I said, as education 3.0, it basically the heutagogy, where it is about the connectivism. Now we are in the era of computers, where most of the, even now what we are doing is a computer based learning. So we are talking in computer. So the technology has come into hand. So whatever we do, we have it in hand. We don't need of the books. We no need of we don't need of teachers. First of all, we are in the self-determined learning. So if I want to learn something, I can just browse in the net and I can get a lot of resources based on that. So not only this is restricted only for adults, even in schools, they have started implementing this heutagogy. They have integration with the other. There, I saw one of these schools in Hubli has implemented this heutagogy concept with the London University, where the students from London and the students from this school have a video conferencing or video lecturing, and they interact and they do some projects. So there are a lot of things. This is a form of self-determined learning, which actually is important, or the need of the heart. Because only if the learner is determined, you can have a good, successful, or a competent goals will be achieved correctly. Other than that, the pedagogical or andragogical method are going to be obsolete in the coming days. So the paradigm shift, as I said, the education 3.0 will be soon expected in all our medical curriculum, where everybody will be having only the computer rather than our books. We can expect that. And blooming of this artificial intelligence in this medical education, where the artificial intelligence had collaborated. Even we have an anchors in art with artificial intelligence, MISA, like that. So everywhere artificial intelligence have come up. So the learning process is going to have a very massive change, where we no need to depend on any teachers, we need to depend on any books. It's all going to be electronic media. So we are going to have this heutagogy method of teaching for learning and cognitive process. Next. So the principle is know how to learn is mainly the crucial skill. So it will tell teachers how to learn. Learning process, it mainly focus on the learning process rather than the content, how it is being accepted. I think most of them have enrolled during your PG period in this Marrow and so many times. I think there are so many courses for this piece. So it is also a self-determined learning, because you have enrolled in that, and they have the process of learning. They have the different methods of learning. They have the different methods of assessment. So they focus on the learning process. They go beyond the specific discipline. It's not about the certain, it won't fix to something. There will be a lot of other problem-based learning. Though every beyond specific discipline, you can learn a lot of things in this heutagogy. It is self-chosen and self-directive action. So it is mainly by the learner who choose the path, and he goes in the direction whatever to achieve the goal. So as I said in the beginning, so that is MOOC, the multimedia, the education 3.0. So actually MOOC was in education 4.0. Previously it was in 3.0 also, but MOOC 4.0 is basically about artificial intelligence. Now even we have a session in qualitative research, where we have incorporated artificial intelligence in the research. So not only in research, in all the aspects, even in teaching, I think we can expect the artificial intelligence to boom up, and ultimately the teachers' role will become obsolete sooner or later. Next. So this is about heutagogy. So just to classify or differentiate between pedagogy, and the fonts are very small, I'll just tell, because I want to compile all this in a single. So the target learners are children in pedagogy, adults in pedagogy, and andragogy. So main objective is to gain knowledge in pedagogy, but in andragogy is to develop competency, but in pedagogy is to develop the capability based on need. It's based on need. You are improving your capability. So pedagogy is instructed learning. The learners are totally dependent on the teachers. In andragogy, they are self-directed learning where the learners are autonomous and teachers acts as the guide. But in self-determined learning, they have the limited role. Teachers, they don't have any role or even the limited role. The learners are independent. They are more autonomous. It is learner-centric, and andragogy is problem-centric, and pedagogy is teacher-centric. So the motivation is by the external reward. So if at all in pedagogy, if a student gets a good mark, you get a reward or they get a certificate or they get a... But in andragogy, it is the internal need and desire. You get satisfied if you learn something. So you get satisfied if you understand something. So that is the internal need. It is a self-directed need. And in pedagogy, it is a internal inquiry driven. So you want to know what is that. Okay, let me know this is not like this. What is the other method? So you have an internal inquiry and you solve your own problem and you search for it. So results are limited during pedagogy, but andragogy, at least it is controlled and it's collaborative because it is decided by the teacher. The teacher will be a facilitator and she will be saying, you take this source, you read in this resource. But in pedagogy, it is unlimited. It is based on the learners. They determine what to learn and what not to learn. It's basically single loop, and pedagogy is double loop. That is, if you cannot solve a problem in single loop, what do? You go for the other method or you redo that thing and find out what is the solution. But in double loop, it is not like that. If you don't find a solution, you communicate and you go and find out what is the other solution to do this. So that is the double loop method. So it allows creativity. So here, the creativity aspect and the collaboration, connectivity of learning is more in pedagogy and andragogy. And learning is multidirectional in pedagogy, but it is in pedagogy and andragogy, it is unidirectional. Next slide. So just to give a pictorial representation, pedagogy is teacher instructed learning process where it is unidirectional. In andragogy, it is bidirectional, though it can be unidirectional also, but it can be bidirectional, where it is self-directed learning, where learners are active participants with with their goals and outcomes, and teacher acts as a facilitator and a mentor. And pedagogy is self-determined learning, which is multidirectional. Teacher is learner, learner is a teacher. They coordinate, they collaborate, and there is a connectivism, and they learn a lot of things in the self-determined learning. So the autonomy of learner is more in pedagogy compared to pedagogy and andragogy. So these are the teaching learning methods which you should know. Next. So just remember this. These are the levels: pedagogy, andragogy, and pedagogy. Where the realization will be more in pedagogy, the learner maturity and autonomy will be more as the level increases. The instructor level or the role of the teacher is decreased in the different levels. So this is the PAH continuum, that is pedagogy, andragogy, pedagogy continuum of learning. Next. So we have completed about this one. Now we are going to the specific learning objective, which was one of the important educational objective we discussed in the beginning. So what is this specific learning objective? So like for an architect to build a house, he need a blueprint. So for a teacher to teach, you need a specific learning objective. It should be transparent, open, and it should be mutually acceptable for the teacher and also for the learner. With this specific learning objective, you can plan what type of teaching method you can use. You can prepare the materials, instruction materials. You can prepare the content. You can prepare whatever is required. What are the competencies which actually expect from the learner. All this can be find out or can be framed by the specific learning objectives. So this helps the students to organize their efforts towards the right direction. So as I said in the beginning, how many of you remember the specific learning objective, which I said in the beginning of the class? Now post me, what was my specific learning objective? Anybody? those who were in the class from the beginning, I displayed my lesson plan and specific learning objective in the beginning of the session. Can anyone say what was my SLO? The crowd is mute. Nobody is answering. End of the final year able to record. No, I am asking about what was my SLO of this pedagogy session. Endless three domain. Great. Very good, Dr. Anisha Naik, to explain three domains, principles of medical education, three domains of education. Good. Okay. Good. So I had only 4 specific learning objectives through teaching steps. Good. So everybody have, so what type of cognition you have applied in this now? Tell me. So you are all typing the answers. So what type of cognition domain is acting in this? Components of SLO. So I had a set of people who answered. Now tell me what cognition, what domain, cognitive domain? Remember, yes. So you are in the level of remembering. Very good. So good, the feedback. So you understood the cognitive and the memory cognitive. Okay, good, good. So this is the SLO. So based on this SLO, we plan our class. So whatever we decide, whatever the lesson we are going to take, we need a learning objective. So at this end of the session, so the student should be able to say this. So my class should go in that way. I should not just beat around the bush and teach something else and ask for the students for something else. If I don't teach about the domains and ask at the end, what are the domains of the education objective, who will answer? If you want to evaluate a student on something, you have to teach the student only on that thing. So your SLO is the main tool which describes that, which describes what is actually the content and how we are going to teach the content to the students and how the students should learn and which direction they have to put the effort in order to get the outcome. Next. So the basic quality. So all of you remember about the smart of any objective. Whenever we say about objective, we always remember the SMART. But when you talk about the SLO, you have to remember the SLO should be relevant. First of all, it should be relevant to whatever topic we are taking. You should frame the SLO based on the topic, what are you going to teach. And it should be unequivocal. That is, it should be unambiguous. That is, ambiguous. It should not have any confusion. It should be clear. And it should be observable. It should be measurable. So whatever you teach, whatever you demonstrate, it should be measurable. It should have an outcome. It should be evaluated at the end. So that observable and measurable is an important component or quality of SLO, and it should be feasible and reproducible. So if you learn about SLO and if you learn about lesson plan now, you have to reproduce, you have to write it again. It should be feasible for you to learn and to reproduce it. So these are the qualities of the SLOs, specific learning objectives. Next. So the SLO has 4 components: act, content, condition, and criterion. So what is the act? What the learner is expected to do is the act. So what describes how the activity has to be performed, or what is the content is describes how the activity is the content, and condition is under what circumstances should the activity be performed is the condition, and criterion is the desirable proficiency. So we say SLO as task plus criterion, where the task is actually the act, content, and the condition. All these together called as task. So act is what is expected from the learner. Content is how the activity has to be performed and under what circumstances or the resources he should do that, and what is the desirable proficiency. So let me give an example. Next. So a postgraduate student must identify on a PA view chest X-ray film the presence of opacity of more than 2 centimeters in the lung in 8 out of 10 films examined. So what is the act here? To identify the presence. The expected act is he has to identify only the presence. He is not expected to do anything else. He has to just see whether it is present or absent. So that is only the act. So content, what is actually he is going to find? Opacities of the lung. What is actually is going to find is the what is actually expected from him, the opacities of the lung. Condition. What is the resources given to him? The chest X-ray films. So what is the criteria? It should be in out of 10 films, he has to find out at least in the 8 films. So this is the criteria. So it's remember that all the SLO will not have a criteria. You cannot fix a criteria for all the SLOs. It's very difficult. Some cognitive domain cannot be given a criteria. So some things you can only understand. You cannot fix a criteria for an SLO. So, but the act, content, and circumstance can be framed. So remember, act, content, condition, and criteria. Next. There is another approach of SLO called as ABCD approach, where A are the audience, B is the behavior, C is the condition, and D is the degree. So who are the audience? First, identify the audience based on the domains where they should be, what they should be able to know is the behavior. Learning resource is the condition, and the criteria, what we mentioned before, is the degree. So A for audience, B is behavior or what they should be able to know, and C is the condition, is the resource you have given, and degree is the criterion. So next. So again, with the same example, what is the ABCD in that same example? A is the audience and the postgraduate students. Behavior identifies the opacities of the lung. So here we are checking the cognitive domain, and condition is the PA chest X-ray film, and the degree is 2 centimeter in size and 8 out of 10. So this is the ABCD approach in SLO. Next. So now we have come to the lesson plan. We have designed, we know what is an SLO. So now we have learned about the different domains, what you have to assess in a learner. Now let us frame a lesson plan. So what is a lesson plan? It is a formalized outline of any lesson. So it is actually the written account of the educational objective to be realized. So what is the instructional session, what you are going to teach them? It should be in a formalized outline. It just gives the outline of whatever you are going to teach. So it can be macro for lectures, it can be micro for micro teaching. So it's actually the roadmap for the presentation skills. So we have 2 types of lesson plan: knowledge lesson plan, which helps learners to gain knowledge, and skill lesson plan, which helps to acquire skills by the learners. So lesson plan is basically a written document or the roadmap for the teachers to plan the instructional session and the teaching learning method. Next. So what are the steps? First, you have to identify which domain you are going to teach, or which domain of learning you are going to identify, where you are going to teach the students, whether it is cognitive, whether it is psychomotor or affective domain. And you identify the audience. You determine the settings. So identify the audience may be different. See, now who are my audience? Here, who are my audience? Postgraduate students are my audience. So what is the behavior I'm expecting here? So what is the ABCD of our session today? What is A? What is B of our session today? So no answers. What is the behavior I'm expecting? Cognitive domain. Okay. So what is the C? Condition. So what is the condition here? It's a laptop or it's an online mode or anything to know the pedagogy domain, to know the pedagogy online. Okay. So, and the degree of correctness, I have said in the SLO, like you have to enlist you have to classify the 3 domains. You have to classify the differentiation between pedagogy. So these are the criteria which we have designed for our session. So here the audience are, so the audience differ for different sessions. Like if you are planning for a health awareness program, or if you are planning for something, you may be speaking in the public, or you may be speaking with the Anganwadi students, or you may have a health awareness session in the school where the school children may be audience, where you have a school children, pre-KG students as the audience. So depending upon the audience, see, if I'm going to take a session, the content varies for different audience. If I'm going to talk about say for example obesity, The content will be different for a school student. The content will be different for a females. The content will be different for males. The content may differ for medical graduates. So depending upon your audience, you plan the teaching learning method, you plan the instructional session and determine the setting where you are going to take, whether it is a classroom, whether it is an open setting, or whether it is a clinical posting, whether it is a bedside sitting. So determine the settings, determine the session duration. So always fix the time, because only then you can stick on to the time. If the session is for 1 hour, you cannot extend more than that. You have to complete your lesson plan based on that. So determine your session duration, develop your learning objective. So as I said, you should have the specific learning objective for your lesson plan, determine how to conduct the session, determine the time for each activity, and prepare the lesson plan. So these are the steps in framing a lesson plan. So next. So what are the elements? So what it should have? It should have a topic, class, the duration of the class. It should have a general objective. It should have a specific objective, set induction, the contents, the teaching learning methods, the teaching learning media, evaluation, and a follow-up session. Next. So I'll give you a next. So with that lesson plan, what you can do, lesson plans help the teacher, as he said, to formulate the learning objective. You can prepare and organize the content based on the audience or whatever the settings you are using, and the materials, what audiovisual aid you are going to use. So if you are going to do it in a public, you can use charts. If you are going to where we don't have any access to LCDs, you should be just only, if you don't have a current, you can use chalk and talk method. So depending upon that, the resources can be used, and you can plan a session which is orderly and systematic based on your lesson plan. Very important thing is you have to remember the contents of the lesson. If you have a lesson plan, the teacher will remember what actually she's planning to take today in this session. The time management can be adjusted based on the lesson plan, and to evaluate what is the learning outcome you expect based on the lesson plan, what are the teaching learning methods, what are the AV aids you're going to use. And it gives a confidence during the presentation of the lesson, and also it facilitates the self and the peer assessment of the teaching. Next. So this is the model of the lesson plan. So a lesson plan usually have, these are the components, the elements which I said. First, you should have the name of the instructor who, the teacher who is going to take the class, the audience. So number of learners, the number of participants or number of students who is going to attend. What is the topic you are going to teach that day, the date, what is the duration of your topic, and what is the subject you are going to teach. And next will be the general objective. So the general objective will be like, at the end of the session, the learner should be a broad objective. It may be only one overall objective. So here I gave the general objective as to learn about, to describe the principles of pedagogy. So it should be a general objective. It should not, it should cover everything. And your specific learning objective at the end of the session, it should go like this. At the end of the session, the learners, so are the whoever the learners, the postgraduates, the undergraduates, the final year students, the first year students, should be able to substitute with the objective based on this ABCD approach. So whatever the objective you are planning, based on the ABCD, you substitute the objective accordingly, and then ensure the objectives are numbered and listed in the chronological order. So you should arrange in the manner where how you are planning to teach. So only if at all, if only one objective is obtained, you can go for the next objective. So in my SLO, I have given like, first I will teach the domains, then I'll teach the SLO. So what if I first itself, if I had taught the lesson plan, you won't know what is SLO before that. You won't know what is a cognitive domain. So it should be enlisted in the chronological order. So you arrange accordingly with that. And you start the class with a set induction. How will you generate the interest in the topic? So any class, the set induction part is very important. How we introduce the topic. So that is more important. So next, you divide the SLOs into the 4 parts, like what is the SLO, what content. So describe what points you will cover in that SLO. If at all, if one is SLO, what you will teach from that content, what teaching method you are going to use in that, whether it is a narration, whether it's a demonstration, what teaching method you are using, and what teaching aid you are going to use, like OHP or a PowerPoint or whiteboard, whatever you're going to use, and the duration of each session. So this is just a framework of a lesson plan. And finally, there should have an evaluation and what is the follow-up activity you're going to give for the students at the end of the session. So let me give an example of a lesson plan next. So This is for an MBBS student, which for 100 learners. The topic is on urinary tract infection from general medicine. So the general objective is, at the end of the session, the learner should be able to describe the fundamentals of urinary tract infection. So this is my general objective. And the specific learning objective is, at the end of the session, the final year MBBS students should be able to define UTI. So they describe the clinical types of UTI, list 5 criteria causing UTI, explain the pathogenesis of UTI. So these are my specific learning objective for this particular session. And set induction. So emphasize the common nature of UTI. So I just start the session like that, talking about how this happens, how they present, how people will come. So this is a set induction period. And evaluation and follow-up activity. Next. So my SLOs will go like this. So definition of UTI. So my teaching method will be lecture, I'll narrate by PowerPoint, 5 minutes. And about upper UTI and lower UTI, I'll explain them using an OHP, 5 minutes. And anatomical biological factors using a lecture method, discussion, PowerPoint, 5 minutes. And as in, so this is only a hypothetical time frame or something. So if you fix a class for, I have fixed a class for 30 minutes. So 20 minutes I have given for this. And if I'm going to have a short answer question for evaluation for the 10 minutes. So I've designed like that. So based on this, you have to put your time frame for your lesson plan. And the follow-up activity what I'm planning for this session is assignments. So my assignment is on antimicrobial sensitivity of common bacteria in our hospital. So I'll give an assignment to follow whether this session has been completed or taken home by the students properly. So this is how a lesson plan to be framed for your pedagogical session. So when you remember the few things which you have to remember in a lesson plan is, you frame the objective SLO very specifically, and you plan the outcome based on the SLO. Your questions should be from the SLO, what you have taught to the students, not from anything else. It can be by any evaluation method, by formative or summative evaluation. So based on the SLOs, you have to have and have only few SLOs for a class. Don't try to teach more in an SLO. So any class will have only short attention span. Next. So a good lesson plan is not too detailed and it should not be very exhaustive. You have to complete it within one paper. You have to give it as a single sheet. As soon as you go, you start the pedagogy session, you give to the examiners. So you should have a single sheet. It should not be fragmentary or trivial. It should not like so many fragments. It should be very clear. It should be flexible and dynamic. It should be present critically on the textbook and relevant, clear, and feasible. So whatever you're teaching, it should be taken home by the students properly, and you have to fix the teaching learning method and the teaching aids accordingly. Next. So I'm not going to deal much with this teaching skills. I just want to put throw light on micro teaching methods. So what is a teaching skill? Teaching skill is a behavior of a teacher which facilitates pupils learning directly or indirectly. So it's basically, as I said, it's an art of communicating to inculcate or incorporate the behavioral change in the people whom we are going to teach. So as a good teacher, he should have good discipline. He should be kind. He should understand everyone's behaviors. He gives incentives or rewards whenever somebody gives them answers. Always helps people having difficulties. Set a good example. So these are the qualities of the good teacher. Next, we have a broad teaching skills. So these are the steps in teaching skills. You have to have an attitude, preparation. You have to organize the content, set induction, specific objective. You have to explain using the teaching aids, stimulus variation, questioning, reinforcing people participation, teachers silence, and non-verbal cues. So these are the teaching skills. I'm not going to go much deeper into this because the session I planned is only for 1 hour. So I have to fix on to my lesson plan. So here I want to say a few things. Set induction, as I said, how we introduce the topic, how to learn to known to unknown. So you have to always talk with the familiar things before introducing a topic. You have to specify the objective. Stimulus variation is something where when the class is going monotonously, you have to change the voice, you have to change the modulation in order to attract or attain attention of the students who are keeping silent. In between, you can ask question, you can reinforce the people participation. In between the classes, you can have silence and non-verbal cues and increase the attention of the students. So these are some teaching skills which you should know. my emphasis today is more on micro teaching. Next. Next. Okay. So what is this micro teaching? So micro teaching is a procedure in which the student teacher, where here the teacher is a student who practices his teaching with a reduced number of pupils in the reduced period of time with emphasis on a narrow and a specific teaching skill. It is like putting the teacher under the microscope and giving or critically analyzing her teaching skills. So the classical example, what they say is, before going swimming into a learner, before going and swimming into 20 feet depth, you first have to learn swimming in a 3 feet, so that he will be confident. He will understand what is the nonsense, what he has to prevent, or he learns completely before going deeper. So micro teaching is just like that, where you apply or you practice your teaching with the people, with your peer group, and get the feedback. So this is the plan of micro teaching, or the cycle of micro teaching, where you plan the session, you teach for 6 minutes, and then you get the feedback. Once you get the feedback, you again replan. You replan your session, and again you reteach, again you re-feedback. So this cycle continues until you attain a proper capability, or reach a desired level of teaching for your satisfaction. So this is the micro teaching method, where you plan, replan, and get reteach, and you get a re-feedback, and this cycle continues. Is micro teaching. Next. So main objective is to enable the teacher trainees to learn and assimilate. If you are planning for any new teaching skills, better to apply it among your peer groups, or if at all, if you are a PG, if you are planning to take a session, you just take a session among your peer groups, among your PGs. So get their feedback. Okay, if they tell, no, this slide has to be changed, no, you have to talk more on this, you have to explain more on this. Take that, you replan, you redo your slide, or you redo your teaching skill, and again you teach them, you get the feedback. So this is how the micro teaching goes on. To enable the teacher training to master a number of teaching skills, micro teaching is very essential, and also it helps to gain confidence in teaching. So these are the main objective. Next. So these are the stages. The particular skill explained for the purpose and components with the suitable example. They should have a short lesson plan. To teach a small group of pupils supervised by the supervisor and the peers, you have to have a feedback. You replan the lesson, revised, taught to another comparable group of people, and you reteach the lesson, re-feedback. Here, the main thing which you have to remember is you reteach and you re-feedback, you replan. So this is the main thing you have to understand in micro teaching. It is a cyclical process until you adequate mastery in your skills. So till you attain the mastery, you will be teaching, you will be redoing, you will be getting re-feedback, and doing the cycle again and again. So these are the stages of micro teaching. For micro teaching, even for this, you have a lesson plan, a micro lesson plan. Next. So what are the next advantages of, that is not coming, advantages of micro teaching? Previous slide, previously. That is gone. I don't know why it's not been shown. So develop specific teaching skills, improves confidence, vehicle for continuous training and repeated practice with the adverse impact. Because if you go and do something new among the students, it will be very embarrassing even for the teacher and also for the students. So before having that adverse impact, it is better to teach among your peer group and get the feedback and change till you attain that mastery. So this is this acts as a vehicle for continuous training, so that it improves the confidence and also the teaching skills among the teacher, and they get a constructive feedback. It should be constructive feedback, and the peers who attend it should have that feeling, or they should give the feedback properly. So it should be like a give and give or take and take policy, like where if you present your peers, they should have a good opinion and they should give you proper feedback to improvise, rather than in an adverse effect. It should not have any adverse effect. You understand the behavior which is important for the classroom teaching by a micro teaching. Before applying it to the mega class, you apply it in a mini class and change what all the behaviors you have to change before seeing or before exploring it in the big group. Next. So what is that? But still, this micro teaching has a limitation. A large number of trainees cannot be given opportunities for reteaching and replanning. It is, in fact, a time-consuming technique, because what we usually do, we plan a lesson, we go and take for the students and come back. So how many of them have the scope of redoing or replanning or getting the feedback and again changing the technique? So it is really a time consuming technique, and it's also, you need a special classroom setting where you have to sit with your peers and you have to teach, you have to plan, and you have to do it, redo it again. Now it deviates from the normal classroom teaching and it has an administrative problem. But in this, again, a few specific skills only can be covered in micro teaching. The content cannot be, content is not emphasized in micro teaching. It's basically a skill oriented process. So only few skills will be covered in micro teaching. Next. So what is the difference between micro teaching and a classroom teaching? Micro teaching, here the teaching is very simple. It involves only 5 to 7. In some book they say it's only 3 to 4. Only small class students where the teaching is only for 5 to 10 minutes. You take up only one skill at the time. The student teacher will be provided with the immediate feedback and he goes for immediate reteaching, and the teacher will gain confidence in teaching. But in classroom teaching, where we teach for more than 30 to 40 students in an uncontrolled situation, where you don't get a feedback, they practice several skills at the time, and their class extends for almost 40 to 50 minutes, but there won't be any immediate feedback and there won't be any immediate reteaching. If you go and take a session for students, is there any chance of reteaching the students if they say, I cannot understand, or I cannot know? Whatever we have learned, we'll just choose the students and we'll say, we'll teach whoever asked doubt. So this is what is happening in a classroom teaching. But in micro teaching, we have the chance of redoing and replanning and reteaching sessions compared to classroom teaching. Next. So this is the checklist among the peers or peer students after conducting a micro teaching. So they will check for set induction, whether the planning is being properly done, the materials or a logical sequence or the content matter, the presentation, the pupil participation, how was it allowed, whether they were allowed questions from the students, whether they have been asked question, whether they raised question, reward on the pupil effect, use of AV aids and closure. So our pedagogy session, whatever we are doing is more or like a micro teaching method. So here, these are the checklist we usually have. How the pedagogy has been gone. So these are the checklists we usually use for micro teaching methods. Next. There is another technique called as mini teaching. Compared to micro teaching, in mini teaching, there is no reteach session. It extends for 5 to 40 minutes, but it involves either small or the whole group. In micro teaching, it is only 3 to 4 students. In each time, only a few teaching skills are concentrated. Here, we have mini lessons into the real teaching program. So only a small lesson for a big group or a small group or for the whole class for 40 minutes, where we don't have a reteaching session. We implement all the teaching skills in the mini teaching program. The one main difference between micro teaching and mini teaching is, in micro teaching, we have reteach session and replan session. In mini teaching, we don't have that reteach session. That's what you have to remember. Next. So finally, the final component of your education objective is the evaluation. Evaluation are of two types, formative and summative evaluation, where formative is an immediate feedback evaluation where the learner counsel and guide them. There is no comparison with the peers, and it depends on the efficiency of teachers. Summative is the competency at the completion of the course, where we use it for certifying or make the student to go to the next level. It is a summative evaluation. So based on that, you evaluate. So for this session, whatever I'm taking, how can I do an evaluation? If I want a formative evaluation, how can I do? How can it be planned for an evaluation for this session? If I want to plan an evaluation, how I can plan? Question and answer session, okay. Post-test, good. MCQ, yes, good. So a formative assessment can be done. I would have distributed a pre-test for you, and at the end of the session, I would have given you a post-test. Or in between, I have asked many questions, so that question and answer sessions can be done. Or at the end, I can circulate the MCQs and give you the answers and tell who has got the highest mark, like that. So it can be done. The feedback evaluation or formative evaluation, it's depending upon the teachers, the efficacy of the teachers. We do the feedback evaluation, and summative is for certifying. So these are the different types of evaluation. Next. So that's what coming to the end of my SLO. Here, this is out of my own interest since the audience are mostly postgraduates. I want to add on a few points which will be usually asked in a pedagogy session, which will be useful for you if you have just a look at this. The most of the common questions asked in pedagogy session are, what is lighthouse effect? So lighthouse effect is while in the class, the teacher will have vision across the audience, which will facilitate an eye-to-eye contact with the audience and helps in engaging them, and they will have the feeling of belongingness. So this lighthouse effect. So attention span of any student is only for the first 15 minutes. So any student for that case is only 15 to 20 minutes. What is anecdotes? There are short and amusing or interesting story about real or incident person. It is a motivational technique to encourage creativity or empathy of the student. So if you are talking about some stories about any real incident, it is anecdote. What is brainstorming? It is an intensive group discussion where spontaneous ideas and solution to the problems are received without any criticism. So if you want to have a creative thinking among students, you ask them, you make them ask them to go for a group discussion, which helps in decision making and creative thinking and explore new ideas. Synetics is a term which is also a special type of brainstorming where the group members are chosen from diverse fields to generate more ideas. So if you want to have an idea about HIV, you can have a sociologist, you can have a NGO, you can have a skin doctor. So many people can have their different ideas from different fields and give their brainstorming session. So that is brainstorming. Next. Peripetate is continuous talking or teaching by teaching continuously. Functional illiteracy is when the reading and writing skills, though they are literate, when the skills are inadequate to manage their daily activity or the employment tasks, they are called as functional illiteracy. Paralinguistic language includes the pitch, the fluency, the signals beyond the verbal message or speech is the paralinguistic language. Bus groups are the groups of 2 to 6 members who discuss issues for 3 to 10 minutes or for the brief period within the lecture. So when you are conducting a lecture, immediately you form a small group for 3 to 6 members and you ask them to discuss about something. This will help the students who are very bored, who are in the monotony. This will break the monotony of the long lectures. The sound produced by the students when they sit together is the buzz. When they sit together and discuss, they'll create a sound buzz. So that is why it's called a bus group. Syndicate is this method is a group activity where the class is divided into group of 6 members compared to bus group where it is 2 to 6. Here it is only 6 members. They work on the interrelated program. It is an intermittent contact with the teacher is allowed. They will be having contact for the long period. So when you go for any workshop, you will be divided into groups, small groups, and you will be having this. And at the end of the session, you will be asked to come and present something for the appraisal. So this is syndicate. Next. Johari window, it is designed by Joseph Laft and Harry. It's a conceptual model or technique which helps people to better understand the relationship with themselves. So the semantic model that shows how people expose themselves to others and receive feedback from others. So this is a very famous thing which you have done. There is known to self, known to others, unknown to self, unknown to others. So how it comes, arena, the blind spot is the event which is unknown to yourself, but it's known to others. The dark is which is unknown to any of you. And the closed part is only you know what you're actually thinking, but it is not known to others. So these are the things that you have to remember in Johari window. It's a transactional analysis skill. Next. So my final slide is to summarize. From the beginning, we were talking about the paradigm shift in the education process. So basically, as I said, it's a spiral process where there will be planning, implementing the objectives and the teaching learning methods, and everything comes together to create a competent Indian medical graduate. We have the different levels of domains of cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains in our learning with the different levels in each domains. which is very important in framing our SLOs. And we also learned about the different teaching learning methods, which is pedagogy, andragogy, and pedagogy, which is instructor-led learning is pedagogy, self-directed learning is andragogy, and self-determined learning is pedagogy, which is blooming now. And also we learned about the lesson plan, how to frame a lesson plan, and also about a few points about the micro teaching and the difference between micro teaching and classroom teaching and mini teaching. And at the end, it was a few add-on points. Hope the session will be useful for everybody. Is there any question? Next slide. Assessment is basically what we do in a continuous process, and evaluation is at the end. It can be formative or summative. Assessment is internal assessment, like between the classes you can do, or between the sessions you can use. But evaluation is a complete process, which we do it. It's like a formal thing which we do is evaluation. Somebody asked slides, so I'll give slides to the administrator. So whoever has registered, you can please use the slide if you feel this is useful. Hope the PGs use this. Thank you. So to submit the lesson plan. You have to give the lesson plan when you enter the pedagogy room. Actually, what the examiners expect is, as soon as you enter, you have to give the lesson plan. And be sure, whatever you given the lesson plan, it should be followed. You can be interrupted any time in between the pedagogy. They will ask you, go to the 15th minute of your lesson plan. So be thorough with your lesson plan. That is very, very important, because the lesson plan is the first key for your pedagogy session. The examiners assess you with that. What is the role of teacher in pedagogy? Actually, in pedagogy, teachers have very, very minimal role. Actually, they are one among the learners. They sit with the learners, and they cannot even guide. They also learn along with them. Learners are teachers, teachers are learners. So that is a concept in pedagogy. The learners are self-determined. Even the learners, even the teachers learn from that. So that is pedagogy. Necessity to prepare both PPT and chalk and talk for the topic. No, it is actually not necessary. See, what you are planning, the teaching learning method, whatever you are planning is up to the teacher. You can decide. But recently when we attended a PG examination, the examiner was very particular. He has to use all chalk and talk, OHP and PPT for the lesson, for whatever he's going to plan. So it depends on the pedagogy session. If you are really a teacher, you can use any of the method. Every teaching learning method has its own pros and cons. So depending upon whatever topic you are teaching, you can use the teaching learning method. Actually, I didn't talk, or I didn't even touch the teaching learning method, because it is not my preview and it was not my specific learning objective. So I didn't go much into this teaching learning methods in this session.
As we approach the conclusion of this enriching session, if the participants have any further questions, please feel free to put in the chat box. And feedback form link has been shared in the chat box. Participants kindly fill it.
Yes,
do you have anything else to say, ma'am?
No, there are some questions popping up. So if at all, when you take a pedagogy, if there is a sudden shutdown, power shutdown, as I said, you should be thorough with your content. You should be thorough with your lesson plan. Whatever you're going to teach, the teacher should be thorough with the content. Only then, even if anything goes wrong, you have to be confident in handling the class. You cannot just say, no, I don't have the PowerPoint, I cannot teach. That is the adverse effect, was I said, in rather than a classroom teaching, in a micro teaching. In a micro teaching, it is possible, but in a classroom teaching, you will be given only that session, which you have to complete it by the time. You won't get another class. So you have to complete the session and come. When the student comes late, sorry, I didn't get. one-page notes in my hands. Can I have one-page notes in my hands during pedagogy? One-page notes in hand, I cannot get you in my hands. Notes on topic or the lesson plan you're mentioning, Doctor? Prompts. So prompts is one of the pedagogical technique which we use in bedside teaching, where the teacher, if at all, if the student is doing something, if the student is not confident whether what he is doing is right or not, the teacher may prompt, yes, just by verbal, non-verbal clues or something. That is prompts. And the student comes late repeatedly. Student comes late repeatedly. You can take what in the pedagogy, whether it is in the class or in the pedagogy. So if it is in the class, if he continuously comes late, it is the role of the teacher to take some action, not affecting or not humiliating the student. Some action should be taken so that other students won't repeat it again. When comes later, should be allowed. No, actually, that is not the correct method. You should not allow when he comes repeatedly, because it's a behavioral change. That is the affective domain, which is to be changed for the student. So he has not conceptualized or internalized his attitude of coming soon. So that is the role of the teacher. You have to teach them. If there are not any other question, can we wind up the session? So I thank TADCOM for giving me the opportunity. Hope the session was useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
First and foremost, I render my sincere thanks to our esteemed speaker and the participants for engaging in this insightful discussion on undertaking pedagogy. Today's webinar has shed light on pedagogy, which I'm sure will greatly benefit for all the participants. We are grateful to our guest speaker for sharing their expertise, experiences in this field, and we appreciate the active participation of our audience through their questions and contributions. Last but not the least, I thank the TADCOM board members and the Digital Wing members for their efforts in organizing this webinar. Once again, thank you all for being a part of this event. We hope you found it enriching, and we look forward to welcoming you all in future webinars of TADCOM. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.